If you get easily offended, do not watch this video. I repeat, if you get easily offended, do not watch this video. If you do watch this video, you are watching it at the risk of your own offense, and I am not to blame. When people ask me about what I think about abortion, there's only one question that comes to mind firsthand. Do you believe that the circumstances to which a life is brought into the world is what determines the value of that life? Or do you believe that life has an intrinsic value and an intrinsic worth that is not dependent on the circumstances in which it's brought into the world? I know that's a bit wordy, but basically what I'm saying is, does a situation in which a baby comes into the world matter? I subscribe to no. I believe that life has intrinsic value, and what I mean by that is a baby is valuable, it's precious, regardless of the circumstances it was brought into. You know, regardless, that life on its own is really precious. And when it comes to the abortion, debate, people often get baby and life confused. I believe that life exists before the baby is there. Let's assume that you were a doctor, and you had a daughter. One day you come home from work and your daughter is singing. Your daughter has the potential to sing. You can see that, oh my days, this child of mine has potential. You understand what I mean? Or you notice that they're really intellectual, and you see this child of mine has the potential to be an academic genius, right? Do you stop them because they aren't already an academic genius? Or do you continue to treat them as if they already were, because that's where you want them to get to, because the potential is there? And most people would train the child, take them to school, give them extra lessons, because they see that this child has the potential to be an academic genius or a singer or whatnot. And that's the same with life. If the potential for life is there in the form of an embryo, if you agree with that analogy, you shouldn't abort, because the potential for something is enough for you to follow it through. Secondly, here's my other point. The main argument for abortion that I hear very often, I'm not saying it's the only one, is it's the lady's body, and therefore it's the lady's choice. And to some extent that may be true. To those who want to believe that may be true. But here's what I say. I believe that abortion is just a word used to commit murder. It's an excuse to take a life away. I'm not here to pressure anybody who's trying to abort or whatnot. I'm not here to pressure anybody into doing something they don't want to do. That's not my problem. I just want to give you a bit of insight. If we were to take that whole my body, my choice argument and really apply it to the real world, here's what I'd say. Let's assume I'm sitting down with a friend. That friend walks up to me, we're talking, we're having a great time, and the friend looks at me and says, Paul, I'm contemplating suicide. I'm contemplating to kill myself. If I then turned around to them and said, your body, your choice, would you think reasonable answer? Or would you think it doesn't matter whether or not it's their body, that choice is wrong? Okay, now let's apply that back to abortion. Now, it may be the lady's body, but that life inside of hers isn't necessarily hers. It's inside her body, but that life isn't hers for the taking. Do you understand where I'm going with this? You see where I'm going? And therefore, if you think it's mean for someone to tell someone to kill themselves because it's their body and their choice, then how can you stand there and say that it's okay for a lady to take away another person's life because it's their body? Surely you have to agree to both, or else you just remain incoherent and you don't make any sense. And for me, that level of hypocrisy, that double standard that people live with is one of the reasons why I believe abortion is a no. Absolutely no. My other point is this. Babies don't appear in people's rooms, women's rooms, to be more respectful. They don't appear there. Something has to be done. And I understand that sometimes contraceptions don't work and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the way I see it is, if you don't feel as though you are ready to have a child, might it happen, do not take the risk. Just don't. Because if it so happens that you do have a child, then I would say you brought that upon yourself. And then when you go and say, I'm not ready for a child, well, then you sort of have to understand that this is a cause and effect thing. The baby just didn't decide to pop into your womb. It so happened that you made a decision you know, that decision followed through, and the consequences is you having a baby. So if you're not ready for the child at the end of the course, then just try to not start it whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying, you know, you can do what you want. You know, you are free to do what you want. But at the end of the day, you have got to be a responsible human being and understand that if you do an action, you have got to pay for the consequences. And I'm not saying a baby is a burden. I believe a baby is a blessing. But for those who want to abort, they will see a baby as a burden. That's why I'm saying pay for your consequences. Now, there is the argument that is, what if the child was you know, conceived through, you know, negative situations such as rape? And I believe then that's sensitive, you know, that's a very sensitive topic, and I have to word myself correctly. But that's why I said at the start that a child's worth is separate from the circumstances to which it was brought in. And therefore I believe that if you are raped and you're having the child of a rapist, you know, and the baby, and you know, I believe it's possible to love that child, you know. But if you feel as though you're too emotionally oppressed and you don't feel as though you'll love that child, put it up for adoption, because at the end of the day, you might as well bring the child into the world and let it live with people that will love them than kill them because you're afraid that you won't be able to love them. Are you telling me that death is better than potential love? Really? Is that really what anybody's saying? I don't think so. I doubt anybody else would think so. So why do it? You know, and I'm not trying to sound insensitive here, you know, but I'm trying to sort of apply the logic in the best way that I can. Now, there will be people who say that, you know, you'll never understand. Yeah, you know what, I may never understand, because at the end of the day, I'm not a woman. But that doesn't mean that my opinion is less valid, and what I'm saying is any less true. You don't have to be a lady to understand these things, and you certainly don't have to be a lady to understand what is true and what is not. And in this case, I believe that abortion as a whole, as a sum operation, is just a massive no. Don't get me wrong, there are many scenarios to which a baby can come into the world, you know, and I believe that it's only when you begin to see the idea of a baby and a child as a burden and as a problem that you will then begin to contemplate taking the life away. And it's really about your presupposition, you know. And I advise people, you know, who are considering abortion, to just think about it and to think, if you wouldn't kill yourself, right, because you understand that my life is precious, why would you then not share that precious life with something else? You know, not something else, but another child to which you would have had to conceive for the situation to take place in the first place. So I believe it's really down to the person who is considering this to just think and to just realize that, hey, this is not just about me, you know. Although it may affect me, it's also going to affect the child itself, you know. What some may say, you know, like Bill Maher, he'd say that it's just a piece of goo. He doesn't see, you know, where the life in goo is. But at the end of the day, it's that animalistic mindset that takes the humanity out of people and leaves them to just not feel. And on that note, peace out.